What if I told you you could double your practice's revenue by making small changes in 4 key areas? This is the approach that we take with the practice that we look at and work with on a consulting basis and education basis. And the goal of this really is to understand the constraints of your practice and how we can apply small changes in a few key areas. This is what we consider the bottleneck strategy. So if you were to think of bottlenecks in a river where things are going to get jammed up, right? If we can start to increase the flow of that, increase the throughput of that in a few key areas, we can dramatically increase the overall improvement in the flow of that water. And in our business, the flow of water really is energy, and energy is money, right? So for us, money is revenue, and that's how we track that. And when we look at key areas of focus within cash-based practices, there's 4 primary ones I'm going to talk to you about today that are going to really help simplify what you should be focusing on, and so you don't feel quite as scattered trying to run and grow your practice. My name is Dave Matei. I'm the founder of Physical Therapy Biz, which is a company that's helped over 1,000 cash and hybrid-based practices all over the country and internationally both start and scale their practices. The goal for us is to really help entrepreneurs that are clinicians first become great business owners, as well as great clinicians. I know what that feels like. None of this comes from my MBA, which I don't have, by the way. I have a DPT, which is right here. It's what I went to school for. So I don't have a traditional business background, but I have run businesses for over a decade. I have started cash practice. I've scaled a cash practice. I've been able to sell the cash practice as well, which is a difficult thing to do, to build a business to a point where other people see enough value in it that they would want to buy it. That's not what we're going to get into today, but this is the building blocks of that. If you want to grow a practice that has value, that is well run and is predictable, that's the key. And these are the 4 key areas that you can really simplify your business down to focus on how can you improve that throughput, which is revenue. So the 4 key areas are this. So number 1 is new patients. It's the one that everybody actually thinks is the biggest constraint, but not always. Average visits per patient. So how many times are you seeing somebody when they come in, which is typically going to be based off a plan of care. A price per session, so what are you actually charging per session, and then the percent of people that are moving over to continuity. So how many people are continuing to work with you on an ongoing basis. And we have a whole nother training on that, which we can link to, but that's going to be a big component of this as well. That's going to be developing recurring revenue on the back end of new people coming in. So there's the front end of the business, which is really these key things we talked about. So new patients, average number of sessions, and then price per session. That's going to dictate your front end revenue. Your back end revenue is how many people are sticking around to work with you ongoing, which does snowball and make a big difference. But the front end revenue is still quite important. So in this scenario, we're going to take clinic number 1. All right, and we're going to say this clinic is generating 10 new patients per month. And let's just say this is an individual operator, single individual that's growing their practice and trying to get to the point where they can hire. Most people, in order to get to the point where they're going to hire, need to be somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 in revenue, depending on their market. It could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but probably not less than 15. So you definitely need to be at a certain size and have enough revenue to be able to bring somebody else on. We typically want people to be closer to $20,000 in order to do that. So this would be a case where we should be able to get there. So let's say clinic number 1 is bringing in 10 new patients, right? And their average number of sessions that somebody's seeing them is 5. They're charging $165 a session, and 10% of people, or 1 out of 10, are sticking around to work with them ongoing. You can actually have no structured continuity offer whatsoever, and you're probably going to get 1 out of 10 people that are just going to keep coming back because they like what you do, or they're training really hard and they want to make sure they're proactive. You're going to get these sort of outliers that just want to do that naturally. So 1 out of 10 is benchmark that a lot of people are kind of at roughly 10% of their practices, this reoccurring side. So let's just say that's where this practice is at, all right? So if we do some rough math on this, and we say, what's this gross revenue going to be? Well, it's going to be 10 new patients times 5 visits per patient, which is going to equal 50 visits that you're generating in that month. At an average visit rate of $165, it's going to give us $8,250 in front-end revenue for the month. Okay, so just over $8,000 off of 10 new patients that are seeing you 5 times on average, with an average visit rate of $165 per session. Now, if we look at continuity, and let's say one of those people moves over to seeing you just once a month, let's say that's the stick rate of how often somebody's coming in. They're just coming in once a month. Then in 12 months, if you do this for a year, you're going to have 1 person per month times 12 months. That's going to equal 12 actual visits on the schedule after a year, assuming nobody drops off in this scenario, times the rate that you're charging, which is $165, which gives you $1,980 in recurring revenue. All right. So that's the revenue that this clinic is going to generate. We'll add it up in a second and compare it to the other practice as well. But you have $8,250 in front end revenue and $1,980 in continuity or reoccurring revenue in this example. Now, let's assume that we have a 20% increase in these numbers. And this is going to be a 20% increase in everything relatively except for our continuity percentage, which we are basing off of a percentage, okay? And I'll explain that here in a second. So new patients, 20% increase from 10 is going to give us 12. Our average visits per patient is going to go up to 6 because that's a 20% improvement there. So from 5, it goes to 6. Our price per session is going to go up 20%. That's going to go from $165 to $195. This is actually the area that a lot of people feel very sketchy about, by the way. For them to raise their prices to a point where they're close to $200 a session, they feel very, very concerned that that's going to basically eliminate any new patients that they might get. They're all going to leave because they think it's too much. I can tell you that there are very few markets that doesn't support, unless you're just an incredibly small town. We're seeing that is the average that a lot of people can maintain or be above in almost every demographic area that we work with. So just as an example, that's not a made up number. That is what most people are actually charging. And we feel that the average visit rate really should be close to $200 in almost every market, sometimes more than that if you're in a more expensive market like a New York City or a San Francisco, LA, something like that, where it's a more expensive area. You need to be above that. But on average, like in Atlanta, which is sort of generally maybe a little bit more expensive than certain markets, but it's still, the cost of living is not incredibly high. That's a price point that is very, very achievable, and more than that actually. So that's going to feel like the biggest jump for most people. And on the continuity side, this is where it's actually going to be the biggest relative change, because we're actually increasing this by 20% from 10% to 30%, which is going to be the biggest jump of all of these. But let's be honest, if you have literally no continuity offer, 1 out of 10 people sticking around. If you have a structured continuity offer, you should be able to get to the point where 30% of your practice or 3 out of 10 people decide, yeah, I want to continue to have a long-term health and wellness relationship with this individual. And we're talking about 1 visit a month, by the way. I'm not saying that they're coming in and seeing you every week forever. And there's definitely plenty of people that have clients like that. This isn't a big jump by any means. This is just what we consider a benchmark for people to get to this point. So if we look at this, you're basically saying, okay, I've improved my marketing in a way where I'm getting 2 new patients a month, that's not extreme by any means. I've gone from maybe not doing as good of a job, having people commit to a plan of care, to improving that slightly. I went up from 5 to 6 on my average visits per month. I've increased my prices 20% from $165 to $198. I now have a structured continuity offer that I have for people that they can stick around to work with me ongoing for. I'm improving how I sell that. And I've gone from 1 out of 10 people to 3 out of 10 people are sticking around and working with me ongoing. All right. So these are relatively small changes in 4 key areas. And this is just an owner operator, by the way. This doesn't even include your staff that may have to make some of these changes. In this example, it's just a single clinician. So a relatively easy thing to do to just try to improve 4 areas and really narrow it down. And that's the key, by the way. If you're trying to improve in business, you can't improve everything at once. You can't just be like, oh, I've got to improve all these systems and my marketing and my sales, and I got to improve like hiring and branding. I got to redo my logo, and I've got to build this huge Instagram presence. It's like, no, listen. If you can literally focus on 4 metrics that you're tracking, and you can start to improve those on a monthly basis, and over the course of a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters, a whole year, you can double your business in a pretty predictable manner by doing that. So in this example, the total numbers, let's look at gross revenue for this. We've now gone to 12 new patients, and that's 6 visits per month instead of 6 visits per patient, I should say, instead of 5. So it's 12 new, 6 visits. That equals 72 visits that we've generated from those 12 new patients on a monthly basis. If we multiply that by our average visit rate, which is now going to be 198, then that gives us $14,256 that's generated on a gross revenue basis in a month. That's front end revenue. Now, if we look at continuity, your continuity offer, 3 out of 10 people are sticking around. And over the course of 12 months, that's going to be 3 people per month times 12 months, gives us 36 total visits that we have coming in comparison to 12, where we only had 1 person per month. So that's 36 times our average visit rate, which is 198. That gives us $7,128 in recurring revenue or back end revenue. And by the way, keep in mind, that's revenue that's coming in without you having to go out and find it every single month. It's incredibly important. Not to mention that revenue is valued at a different rate if someone looks at your business in terms of the value of it than front end revenue. It's almost double for the dollar for dollar on the back end if it is recurring than on the front end. It's just more predictable, and people pay for predictable revenue. They pay a premium for that. So if we look at the total of these two clinics, all right, remember we did a 10% change or a 20% change in these four areas. Total, if we look at clinic number one is going to generate $10,230 a month. This is after 12 months, assuming there's no change in the number of new patients that they get and or what they're charging. This is clinic one as our sort of baseline where they're starting. If we make these 20% changes in four key areas, our revenue in clinic number two jumps to $21,384. Now, this is a massive difference. You've doubled your revenue with like no additional people really. This is just you focusing on a couple key areas and improving the ability for somebody to stick around, as well as improving the front end slightly. But even if you look at just the front end revenue, if you just look at just improving your marketing, your average visits per patient, and then your average visit rate, that's going to take you from about $8,000 to $14,000 in revenue right there. That's it. That's assuming that even if you did nothing on the back end. But if you can just improve continuity as well, it puts you at a place where you've literally doubled your revenue in the course of a year by just focusing on four things. This isn't an astronomical amount of work. This is a very narrow, focused amount of work. This puts you in the place. Keep in mind, if you're trying to grow past yourself, you're kind of stuck here at $10,000 a month, clinic one. If you're here, you're at $10K a month in clinic one, you cannot hire somebody else. You can't make it work off of those numbers because you still got to pay overhead, taxes, like that. You're taking home maybe like pre-tax, let's call it $8,000 if you're really efficient and you're running at 80% net, if just by yourself, right? And you're fulfilling everything. If you have the second clinic's revenue, you're making a lot more than that, and you're saving cash reserves in preparation to hire somebody. So this gives you the opportunity to then jump into a business where you actually have other people helping fulfill on services, which we consider a true business, a business that has revenue when you're not the one fulfilling it, a business that generates revenue if you're on vacation, if you get hurt, if you just want to dial back some of your patient volume because you want to focus on other things in the business or outside of the business. This gives you the opportunity to have non-passive revenue or non-active revenue within the business and continue to grow from there. So these numbers will scale dramatically, by the way, if we push it out another year, because you have to keep in mind that recurring snowball revenue from the continuity side is going to continue to grow as well, meaning you need less new patient volume in order to grow that second staff member's schedule. So as we look at this, the keys to remember are this. Don't try to fix everything at once. Try to fix a few key areas that we can dial in as bottlenecks. And it may, honestly, for you, not even be all of these. You may say, I feel like I'm doing pretty good on new patients. So you come over here and you're like, hey man, I'm getting 12 people already. Awesome. But I'm seeing each of those people 4 times. So my average visit rate, not great. All right. So I focus on average visit rate. My price per session, let's say it's $165, it's low. We're going to bring it up to $195. And then let's say 3 out of 10 people are sticking around to work with you. So continuity, cool. We don't have to work on that. Now you only have to work on two things to double your practice. That's it. And now you can focus on learning those skills, on implementing those skills, and on tracking those skills. But the key is you have to know your numbers. You have to track your numbers. Then you have to implement a plan that improves those numbers. And guys, listen, I mean, for God's sakes, you're a physical therapist or clinician of some sort. You've gone through some advanced education. This is no different than working with a patient to make a long-term change. If you have someone that comes in that has an ACL repair, do you just like wing it? Do you not track anything? Do you not test anything? And you just say, you know what? You look like you're ready to go back and play soccer. Good luck. Like, have an awesome season. You'd be a awful clinician if that's what you did. If that's what you did, you're putting that person in risk of getting hurt again because you're not actually testing them on return to sport measures that we know are benchmarked. They exist for a reason because it helps us get athletes back to sports without having re-tears. The only thing worse than an ACL tear is re-tearing your ACL. That sucks. So we use very specific data-driven metrics to make sure that we're tracking as we're improving people's movement patterns, as we're improving their strength, their mobility, and their capacity to perform in their sport long term. It's the same freaking thing for your business. But yet I talk to business owners all the time and they just wing it. They're amazing in one area. They track everything. They're so objective about it. And yet on the business side, they completely wing it. And you got to realize you already have this skill set. You have this clinical skill set that you just got to draw over the parallels to the business side for you to realize if you really want to make a massive change, all you have to do is just tweak your knowledge base a little bit and apply it on something else that is, frankly, very, very important for you to learn. This is how you're going to provide for your family. This is how you're going to create jobs for other people. This is how you're going to help a lot of people in your community. It's really, really important for you to just take some time to improve your business skill set and look at it just as a transition of the knowledge base that you already have in one area over into the business realm. And that's all it takes. You already have it. So you just need to know what to track. And hopefully this helps you understand that. So again, the 4 key areas that we tend to see be big bottlenecks for people that if we can make small changes, we can literally double their revenue is new patients, how many people are coming in that are new, the number of sessions that people are seeing you for on average, the price per session that they're paying, and then how many of those people are sticking around and continuing to work with you ongoing. So I hope this helps you. I know running a business is a challenging thing. It is something that is very stressful if you feel like you don't know exactly what's going on. Our goal is to educate clinicians so that you can become better business owners, not just great clinicians, so you can effectively help more and more people. We know the impact that your profession makes. We know the impact that your profession makes on the people in your community, on the people around them, and the generational health changes that you're able to help them attain by getting them out of pain, back to the activities they love, doing the things they love doing with those people, whatever those are, wherever those are, doesn't matter. You're making their life better long term, which is amazing. And that's what I love so much about these businesses. It's an impact-driven business that can really help you use your skill set in a slightly different way, increase your time freedom, your financial freedom, and provide amazing jobs for people in our profession that are honestly getting burnt out by high volume clinics left and right. Like we see that all the time. So with PT Biz, my goal is to do this. If you want help, structured help on your business, the next step would be jump on a call with our team, and I promise you it'll be the best hour you've ever spent getting a hard look at your business. The goal for us is to really dial in what areas are you deficient. We benchmark you against all of the clinics that we work with, which is hundreds at this point within the US. That means we have very clear data about what makes a successful practice and what isn't successful in terms of where you need to be with these KPIs or key performance indicators that we track on a regular basis in the business. I think of it like, if you do a blood panel for yourself or for a patient and you're looking at biomarkers to see if they are healthy internally, this is a biomarker assessment essentially for your business that we want to take you through and get a very clear idea of what you're deficient at, what you're doing great at, what you need to focus on, and what those skills might be. That's it, and if it makes sense that you want us to help you implement it, cool, we can talk about that. And if it doesn't, then awesome, you have great information that's going to really help your practice in a significant way. And by the way, it's totally free. This is something that people would pay for just to get an idea of what's going on, but we want to be able to show that we can help you before we even have a conversation about how we may be able to do that. So if you're interested, click the link below. Sign up for a discovery call with one of our advisors who at this point have talked to hundreds and hundreds of clinicians all over the country. Get a really close look at what's going on in your business. Get an honest assessment of what you're doing well and what you need to improve, and really start to chip away at the right things in your business and stop wasting your time just spinning your wheels trying to figure everything out at once. So hope you enjoy this. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.